People who grew up in Crandall Ridge still talk about the moment the mountains swallowed a man. It happened on a cold afternoon in October 1998, when three white hikers, two brothers, Aaron and Luke Fletcher, and their lifelong friend, Michael Brewer, stepped onto the Pine Ridge trails for a weekend hike they had done a dozen times before. But only two of them walked back. The third, he simply vanished. Right in front of them. No scream. No slip. No break in the ground. No sign of struggle. For 8 years, nothing about that day made sense. The town blamed the mountain blamed the wind, and the families blamed themselves. The police blamed the lack of evidence. But in 2006, an old object, one nobody expected to ever see again, was found by accident. And everything the Fletcher brothers believed about that day was suddenly questioned. Because the object didn't just reopen the case. It led directly to a skeleton, hidden where the search teams had already looked. And the way those bones were positioned suggested one horrifying truth. Someone else had been on that trail in 1998. Someone who left no trace. Someone the two surviving hikers never saw. Someone who might have watched them walk away. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most haunting disappearance cases you've never heard of. A story of fear, betrayal, and a discovery no one was prepared for. But before we get started, kindly like this video, drop a comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another true crime story like this. Now, let's begin. Before the tragedy, the three hikers weren't just outdoorsmen, they were practically brothers. Aaron Fletcher, 31, was the responsible one. A paramedic, cautious by nature, always checking weather forecasts and trail difficulty ratings. Luke Fletcher, 28, was the adventurous one. A builder, broad-shouldered, always joking, always taking risks. Michael Brewer, 29, was the quiet one. A high school history teacher, soft-spoken, thoughtful, known for carrying a small silver compass engraved with MB, a gift from his father on his 18th birthday. They had been a trio for more than 15 years. Camping, hiking, climbing, it was their ritual, their escape, their reminder of simpler days. In 1998, life was pulling them in different directions. Jobs, mortgages, engagements, sick parents, responsibilities. So this hike, planned for October 17th to 18th, was meant to be their annual reset, one last breath of freedom before winter and adulthood set in. Crandall Ridge's Pine Ridge system wasn't considered dangerous. It was known for bright yellow birch trees, quiet streams, sweeping cliffside views, wildlife but nothing predatory, and a trail network maintained better than most small towns could afford. People joked the mountain was so calm that even search and rescue teams used it for training because they rarely had real emergencies. Nobody imagined that would change forever in 1998. The brothers picked up Michael in Aaron's old blue Ford Bronco. The sky was still dark, frost clinging to windshields, and the air smelled like the beginning of winter. Michael climbed into the back seat with a thermos of coffee and said, "Last hike of the year, boys. Let's make it count." They were all white, tall, built for the outdoors, wearing layered hiking gear and carrying 2 tents, sleeping bags, food, water filters, a small first aid kit, cameras, and Michael's silver compass hanging around his neck. A park ranger remembered them signing the trail register and laughing about who always got lost. "Not us," Michael said, tapping his compass. The ranger later testified that nothing seemed off. No suspicious person followed them. No argument. Nothing unusual. They hiked along Birchline Trail, took photos near the waterfalls, and stopped for lunch at a clearing around 12:30 p.m. Witnesses passed them twice and later claimed They looked happy. Nothing strange. Everything pointed to a normal trip. By 3:10 p.m., they reached the ridge known as Hunter's Pass, a narrow section overlooking the valley. Breathtaking, peaceful, and completely open. The wind was stiff but not dangerous. This was where every known detail about the disappearance becomes maddeningly strange. What happened next has only ever existed through the memories of the two surviving hikers. Aaron took out his camera to capture the sunlight hitting the valley. Luke walked several steps to the right to relieve himself. Michael stood near the edge, not dangerously close, just looking out. Aaron later said, "I turned the camera toward Michael to tell him to move closer, and he wasn't there." Luke said, "I heard Aaron ask, 'Where'd he go?' and I thought he was joking. But when they ran to the edge, nothing made sense. No fresh disturbance in the dirt. No snapped roots. No drag marks. No shoe scuffs. No broken branches down below. No sound of falling rocks. Nothing." They shouted Michael's name until their throats burned. They split up and ran back along the trail. No sign. No footprints veering off. Just silence. After 2 hours, they sprinted back to the ranger station, breathless, pale, shaking uncontrollably. Over 120 searchers, 3 helicopters, dogs, ropes, infrared scans, and climbers swept every inch of Hunter's Pass. The search lasted 13 days. And yet, not one trace of Michael Brewer was found. Not a backpack strap. Not a torn piece of clothing. Not boot prints. Not a broken branch. Nothing. As if he had been erased from the trail. The official search for Michael Brewer became one of the largest in Crandall Ridge's history. For nearly 2 weeks, Pine Ridge trails were filled with volunteers, drones, the early models, search dogs, and mountain rescue teams from other counties. But from the first day, one thing felt wrong. No one could determine a starting point. Rescuers expected to find at least something: footprints leading off the ridge, broken branches, clothing snagged on rock. But the ground around Hunter's Pass showed no sliding marks, no handprints, no sign of weight shifting, no disturbed rocks, no fresh cracks along the slope. It was as if nothing had happened at all. Michael's father, Harold Brewer, walked the search perimeter himself. After the 5th hour, he said to the sheriff, "My son's not stupid. And he's not invisible. Somebody has him." But there was zero evidence of another person. Teams extended the search farther down the slope. If Michael had slipped, his body would have been somewhere along the rocks or caught on a fallen tree. But there was nothing. No torn backpack, no clothing, no bruised branches, nothing. A volunteer climber said something that stayed with reporters. "If he fell, we'd have found him. We searched that valley like we were looking for gold." On the 7th day, search dogs reportedly picked up a scent near a cluster of pines below the ridge. But after following it about 30 meters, it abruptly stopped at a pile of loose rock. The behavior confused handlers. Normally, a scent fades gradually. This one cut off instantly, as if the source had vanished into thin air. Some locals speculated there was another human presence, and that scent trails overlapped. But no additional prints were found. No cigarette butts. No boot tracks. No trash. Nothing human. By the 10th day, the FBI was consulted informally but didn't join the case due to a lack of federal indicators. Still, off-record comments were made. One ranger recalled an agent muttering, "This looks staged." But staged by who? Mountain ghosts. Those words followed the brothers everywhere. The search took its toll on Aaron and Luke. Every morning they joined teams at sunrise, climbing the same slopes until their legs shook, shouting Michael's name until their voices cracked. Luke punched a tree on the 8th night and broke 2 knuckles. Aaron collapsed near the stream on day 11, shaking, sobbing. But there was nothing they could do. On the 13th day, the search was officially scaled back. On the 15th day, it was suspended indefinitely. Michael Brewer was declared missing, presumed deceased. And the town of Crandall Ridge quietly shifted into a new era, one where people didn't trust Pine Ridge trails anymore. The next 8 years passed slowly and painfully. The case never officially closed, but it froze, locked in a cabinet in the sheriff's office, untouched except for rare anniversaries or hopeful tips. For surviving hikers, moving on didn't exist. Aaron Fletcher. He left Crandall Ridge in early 1999. He quit his job. He moved from rental to rental. He avoided anyone who asked about the trail. Old friends said. He never stopped carrying the guilt. He relived that day every time he closed his eyes. Luke Fletcher. Luke stayed in Crandall Ridge but wasn't the same. He stopped hiking. Stopped laughing. Stopped talking about anything but work. Some nights neighbors heard him yelling in his sleep. They said he woke up sweating, whispering. He was right there. Right there. Both brothers avoided interviews. They refused documentaries, news inquiries, and podcasts. They attended Michael's memorial service, then disappeared from public view. Harold and Linda Brewer, Michael's parents, kept his bedroom exactly as he left it in 1998. Compass chain hanging on a framed photo. His hiking jacket on the back of the chair. Books stacked beside the bed. A half-finished crossword puzzle still marked in pencil. They held on to hope longer than anyone believed possible. Every October 18th, they went to Pine Ridge and left flowers at the trailhead. Locals often saw Linda staring at the mountains with a heartbreaking expression, one caught between grief and a belief that the mountain would someday give their son back. Crandall Ridge developed its own folklore around the disappearance. Some said, he fell into a hidden crevice. He was taken by a drifter or fugitive. He got lost and was never found. Others whispered darker things. The brothers know more than they're saying. Someone was watching them from the tree line. There was a 4th person on the trail that day. But without evidence, they were only theories, shadows cast by an event too mysterious to explain. The Brewer family never stopped hoping for answers. The Fletcher brothers never stopped dreading them. And then on August 2, 2006, everything changed. An accidental discovery, something small, old, rusted, dragged the entire truth back into the light. The woman who found it didn't know she was walking into history. Her name was Diane Cole, 42, a school counselor visiting Crandall Ridge for the first time. She had no idea about the 1998 disappearance. Pine Ridge Trails was simply a place she'd heard was beautiful. It was summer, hot enough that the trail was dry and visibility was perfect. Around 4:40 p.m., Diane stepped off the main trail to take a photo of a fallen tree. The path was overgrown, narrow, and slightly muddy from a recent rainfall. Her foot caught on a root, and she fell forward, catching herself with her hands. That's when she saw it. Something metal glinted under a thin layer of dirt. She brushed the soil away and uncovered a small silver compass, rusted, scratched, but still intact. It had initials carved into the back. She later told rangers, "I didn't know what it meant. I just thought someone lost it years ago." The Brewer family recognized the compass immediately. It was the item Michael carried everywhere. The one he had the morning he disappeared. The one his father gave him. The one search teams never found in 1998. Its appearance in a new location raised disturbing questions. How did it move there? Why wasn't it found during the original search? Who handled it? Why did it resurface 8 years later, completely out of place? The sheriff reopened the case within 2 hours. Modern techniques, better mapping, and new cadaver dogs joined the search instantly. The location was only 250 meters from where dogs had lost Michael's scent in 1998. And within 48 hours, the mountains finally gave back what they took. The rediscovery of Michael Brewer's compass in August 2006 set off a new search that drew national attention. Reporters flooded Crandall Ridge again, camping in front of the sheriff's office, reviving every theory that had been whispered 8 years earlier. The first 48 hours were pure chaos. Helicopters circled above Hunter's Pass, and locals gathered behind yellow tape, watching rangers comb through the thick brush with long metal probes. The mountain, green and calm, looked indifferent, as if it had forgotten the pain it caused. At 10:32 a.m., one of the cadaver dogs alerted near an old, overgrown drainage gully. The handler described the dog's behavior as sudden, intense, and unrelenting. When the team cleared brush and loose rock, a faint, almost sweet smell drifted from the soil. By noon, searchers uncovered fragments of faded fabric, olive-green nylon consistent with the jacket Michael had been wearing in 1998. A few hours later, deeper beneath the soil, the first piece of bone appeared. The search leader radioed the sheriff's office. "We've got remains." The discovery site lay about 200 meters below the main ridge, hidden by thorny undergrowth and boulders too heavy to move by hand. Investigators immediately noted how oddly tidy the scene looked. The skeleton rested under a slanted tree trunk, almost protected from rainfall. The skull was detached but placed beside the torso. The backpack leaned upright against the tree, zipped. Both hiking boots were side by side, untouched. And the soil directly beneath the bones was unnaturally flat, as though someone had packed it down. The sheriff's deputy who first approached whispered to a colleague, "This doesn't look like a fall. This looks like somebody laid him here." 8 years in the wilderness had stripped away most evidence, but forensic experts did their best. The skeleton showed no bullet wounds, no knife marks, and no clear blunt force trauma. However, one rib displayed a sharp inward fracture that might suggest a hard blow or impact before death. Both shoelaces were missing, and the compass that Diane had found, still intact, matched a broken chainring discovered beside the ribcage. Toxicology was impossible. The cause of death remained undetermined. Yet the forensic pathologist told reporters off-record, "This isn't how the wilderness reclaims a body. Someone touched this man after he died." When the remains were officially identified as Michael Brewer, Crandall Ridge fell silent again. Aaron and Luke Fletcher returned to town to give new statements. Cameras flashed as they stepped out of the sheriff's office looking pale, hollow, years older. They repeated their original story word for word. They had looked away for seconds. Michael was gone. No argument, no stranger, no sound. Investigators grilled them for inconsistencies. None surfaced. The sheriff later told local radio, "If they're lying, they've kept the same lie for 8 years, down to every pause." How did Michael's compass end up where Diane found it, several yards uphill from the remains? One theory suggested animals might have dragged it. Another implied that rainfall and erosion gradually moved it over years. But geologists disagreed. The slope angle made that unlikely. It would have had to be placed there by a person. And if that's true, it meant someone visited the site long after 1998. Michael Brewer's skeleton was returned to his parents in a simple cedar coffin. The funeral was quiet, just family, the Fletcher brothers, and a few old friends. Aaron placed a folded map of Pine Ridge inside the coffin before it was closed. Luke laid a single pine cone, whispering, "We're sorry, Mikey." After 8 years, closure should have come. But closure doesn't always mean peace. He later moved to Washington State, remarried, and tried to rebuild a life. But neighbors said he still refused to go near mountains. He taught his kids to respect silence, because silence can take people. Luke stayed in Crandall Ridge but never spoke publicly again. He walked the trail sometimes, alone, as if hoping to understand what he'd missed. Locals said they'd see him stand at Hunter's Pass for hours, eyes fixed on the horizon, lips moving but no sound. Harold and Linda Brewer finally had a grave to visit, but Linda once told a journalist, "You can bury bones, not questions." She kept Michael's photo beside her bed until she died in 2011. Some hikers claim to have seen an unidentified man camping off-trail around the time of the 1998 disappearance. Tall, bearded, wearing a dark jacket. No one ever found him. No registration records matched. The rumor became a local legend, the Hunter's Pass Man. Skeptics believed Michael slipped, hit his chest on a rock, explaining the fractured rib, crawled downhill, and died under the tree. But that couldn't explain the neatly placed items, or how his boots stayed upright. Privately, some investigators believed that someone the group knew might have followed them. There was gossip about a former co-worker of Michael's, a jealous man fired months earlier after a public argument. He moved out of state soon after the disappearance, and police could never locate him. Nothing tied him to the scene, but the timing still bothered detectives. In late 2006, 2 months after the skeleton was found, a volunteer helping clear the area stumbled on a camera memory card wedged under a rock. The card was corroded, but data recovery specialists retrieved 3 usable photos. The last photo time-stamped October 17, 1998, 3:14 p.m. It showed Aaron and Luke smiling beside the cliff. In the background, standing several yards behind them, blurred but unmistakable, was a 4th figure. No one could identify the person. Too far for facial recognition. Too human to be a trick of light. And too close to dismiss. When shown the image, both brothers went pale. Aaron whispered, "There were only 3 of us." The sheriff's office never released that image publicly. To this day, it's locked in evidence under a file marked 1998, reopened, unresolved. Crandall Ridge eventually recovered its calm. Tourists returned. The trails reopened. But locals still crossed themselves when passing the old trailhead. The sign at Pine Ridge still bears the carved initials from 1998, A+L+M, their final mark of friendship. Each winter, hikers say they hear echoes near Hunter's Pass. Faint calls, soft footsteps, the rustle of someone just out of sight. Whether that's imagination or memory, no one knows. 3 men went hiking in 1998. 2 returned. 1 disappeared into the quiet of the mountain. And 8 years later, when a simple silver compass resurfaced, it brought with it a truth that no one could prove, but everyone could feel. Whatever took Michael Brewer that day, man, accident, or mountain, it still hasn't let go.